What's up everyone? Welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to make a simple user form in Excel using VBA. I'll show you how to get inputs from most of the options VBA gives you in the user form toolbox. Even if you have no experience with VBA, you can still do this. Let's start off by going into Visual Basic. You can click on the Developer tab, then click Visual Basic. If the Developer tab is not visible, you can watch my video, How to Add the Developer tab. Or you can also use the hotkey Alt F11. Now, once you are in the VBA window, go to the Insert tab and click on the user form. You can resize this as needed. It doesn't need to be perfect right now. You can change it later. You'll see a little toolbox pop up. If it doesn't, you can add it by going to the View tab and clicking Toolbox. Click on the main form. Go to Properties and name the form what you like. Since this is a receipt tracker, that's what we'll call it. This top one is the name for our variable. The caption is what is going to display in the upper left. Now you are ready to add in a label. This one will be for our date input. You can see in the lower left, this is where you can change the variable name for the label you just entered. This is not super important with the labels as they do not take input, but will be important with our text boxes. Next, we put in the text box. Now we don't need to fiddle too much with the size because we can make it the same size as our label. Highlight both, right-click, and make same size for both. You can also align middles, which aligns them both horizontally. Now here in the properties, let's change the name to something we will remember for later, as this will correspond to the variable in the VBA code. Let's call it Date Text Box. At any point, if you want to view your progress, you can hit Run Macro. For the description label, you can copy and paste the first one. Label it how you want, and then you can align center, which aligns them vertically. For the description, we're going to have a list box. You can make it the same width as the text box, but let's make the height a little bigger. There will be some options here, so we want to make room for that. Then you can align and label as needed. For the amount input label, you can just copy and paste the ones we have before. Change the label to amount, and then align. For the spin box, we need to first have a text box. Let's label and name the text box like we did before. Then we can add the spin button. Label as needed, and then align. For the transaction label, you can just copy and paste the other labels as we did before. Label it what you want, and then align. For transactions, we'll use checkboxes. We'll add in the checkbox, copy and paste, align as needed, and then label the checkboxes. Next, we'll create a label for the category input. Again, copy and paste a label as we did before. Label this one how you want, and then align. For the category, we'll use a combo box. We'll add in the combo box, label it, and then align. Next, we'll create a label for the need or want selection. Again, we'll copy and paste a label from before. We'll rename the label, and then we'll align the box. For the need or want selection input, we'll need to add a frame first. Size it, then we can label it. Next, we'll add in some buttons, resize, and label. Now we want to add in the OK, Clear, and Cancel buttons. We'll update the labels and the variable names. And then align them as needed. So now that we're done designing our form, we can add a button to our sheet to view the form. Close out of the editor. Under Developer, insert Command Button. Now we want to resize and rename the button. Next, we have to add a line of code to connect the button to our form. Right-click and hit View Code. Then you want to show your receipt tracker form. You'll use the name of your form, which in this case is the receipt tracker form. So we'll type receipt tracker form.show, and then we'll close out and test the button. Next, we need to initialize all of the inputs from the form. Go back to the editor, right-click on Receipt Tracker and hit View Code. In the drop-down, select User Form. Then in the right drop-down, select Initialize. This is where you'll define the initial values of your input. So here you're going to use the name of your text box from the property you set earlier. If you don't remember, you can view it. Go back to the form and click on the box you want to initialize and view the name. You can get back to your initialize subroutine by double-clicking in the form. Next, you can initialize the date text box by typing datetextbox.value equals and then a blank string to initialize. To initialize the list box, you type the name of your list box and clear. Description listbox.clear. Next, let's fill some options. Here we will use a with statement so that we don't need to type out description list box each time. We'll use the add item method to add a new item to the list. In other words, we could go to the input and put each item in as description list box dot add item, item 1, description list box dot add item, item 2, and then on and on. But we'll save some time by doing the with statement. So instead we'll type with description list box dot add item Ralph's dot add item Target dot add item Arco dot add item Costco dot add item Home Depot, and then we have to end with. At this point you can click out and test. If it doesn't work, you can comment out and go back. Now we'll initialize the spin box, and we'll use the same method we did with the text boxes. So the name of our spin box was amount text box, so we'll do amount text box dot value equals and then a blank string. To initialize the checkboxes, we will set the checkbox values to false. So we'll do credit checkbox dot value equals false, and then debit checkbox value equals false. So when we look at the form, the credit and debit checkbox values will be unchecked by default. To initialize the combo box, we do the exact same as we did with the list box. First, we clear the box with category combo box dot clear. Then we use the with statement and the add item method. Let's put in some categories. At this point, you can click out and test. If it doesn't work, you can comment out and go back. Now we'll set the default option button to want. Want option button dot value equals true. Alright, so next let's set the date text box as the first item to fill in. We'll use the set focus method on the date text box. Date text box dot set focus. So now we've essentially created the front end for our user to interact with. We need to connect the logic which connects the user inputs to our Excel sheet. Let's connect the spin button to the spin button text box. We will do this by typing amount text box dot text equals amount spin button dot value, and then we'll divide by 100. So we're going to divide by 100 so that we can increment in decimal hundredths. Go to the form and double-click the OK button. This shows you where to add the code for the OK command. Declare a variable to hold the counter number for the next empty row. Dim empty row as long. Then activate your current sheet. Activate sheet dot activate. Get the count for empty row. So to figure out the empty row, we'll type empty row equals worksheet function dot count A in parentheses range from A to A plus 1. This line uses the count A method on the range object for column A. In other words, it's like counting how many cells in column A are empty. Then it adds 1 to get the count, which goes to the next row. Next, we store the information into the correct cell. So we'll type cells, and then we'll give it empty row, comma 1, dot value. And then we'll put in date text box dot value. So what this is doing is saying on the first empty row in the first column, put the value you got from the date text box. And then we'll put cells empty row 2 dot value equals description list box dot value. And so that puts on the same row in the next column, column 2, the value from the description list box. And then the same thing for the next line, cells empty row 3 dot value equals amount combo box dot value. So that puts on the same row in the next column, column 3, the value that we got from the amount combo box. So for the checkbox logic, we need to use an if-then statement. So if the credit box is checked, we want to store that in the same row and in the fourth column. So we'll type if credit checkbox dot value equals true, then cells empty row 4 dot value equals credit checkbox dot caption. So essentially what's happening here is if that box is checked, it's going to put the credit checkbox caption in that cell. So the same row, fourth column. And then we're doing a similar thing with the debit checkbox, but we also want to make sure that if both are checked, that they both show up there. So it looks very similar. So if debit checkbox dot value equals true, then cells empty row comma 4 dot value equals cells empty row comma 4 dot value and a space and then and the debit checkbox caption. So that'll put, if both are checked, it'll put credit debit, and then if only debit is checked, it'll just put debit. Next we'll do the combo box. This is just like the other boxes we had. Cells empty row column 5 dot value equals category combo box dot value. So this is taking the category combo box value and then putting that in the same row, column 5. Next we'll do the logic for the need or want button. So if need option button dot value equals true, then cells empty row 6 dot value equals the string need. Else cells empty row 6 dot value equals the string want, and then we have to end the if statement. So in VBA, to show that you're ending your statement, you usually have to put end and then whatever statement it is. So for the clear button, it's pretty simple. We just have one line. All we want to do is clear out all of the inputs that we had in before. So this is actually pretty simple because we already have a subroutine for that. And we can use the user form initialize subroutine. So we'll call that user form initialize subroutine, and it will initialize all of our values back to what they were before. Let's do the logic for the cancel button. The cancel button is also short. For the cancel button, we can use the unload statement because this will remove an object from memory. And we'll combine the unload statement with the me keyword, which is in reference to an instance of a class. In this case, it is referring to the user form itself. So when we hit the cancel button and it uses the unload me statement, then it will close out our user form. Now it's time for the fun part. We can test the form. So that's it for this tutorial. Stay tuned for the next one.